So first of all, I would like to say welcome to the children, a very big welcome to the children. I hope they can hear me and I hope they are ready and raring to go to participate in this session. So what we are going to have in this session, I'm just going to outline. What we really want is to give an opportunity to the children to speak. So I am not going to really permit any of the to be speaking during this time, except perhaps later on when there is a discussion which we may need to then come in. But what I want us to do is to have a very meaningful engagement where we listen to the children and we are able to hear their views and to absorb those views because they will help us in making decisions about how we can work better with them. So this session is really about the children. And I think that most of you would know that even within the strategic plan that was presented this morning, that child participation is a key aspect of our work. And we have been infusing it more and more over the years as we have been implementing our programs. And I would like to say that particularly this year, whilst we have had these challenges with COVID-19, there are some opportunities that have also come around in terms of participation of children through the virtual meetings that we are having. And you'd know that CRNSA, as the Secretariat of the CSO Forum, also managed together with other partners to coordinate a children's forum during the CSO forum, continuing with that drive for child participation. And you'd also know, if you have participated in our AGMs over the past years, that this would be the first time that we really have children from across the region in the different countries coming in and having their own session where they are really sharing their views. So this is really a valuable session for me, even as an individual, in my perspective about the importance of child participation, and also a very important session for the growth of CRNSA and for us to become stronger for children. We need to be hearing from them so that we can best meet their needs. So children, I encourage you to really discuss the issues, to be open, to feel free. This is about you. This is your session. Feel free to express yourself. I am going to give children from each country an opportunity to speak and contribute to this discussion. Now, the discussion is going to center around COVID-19. The children are going to be expressing their experiences around COVID-19. We know there are a lot of issues around child abuse, around nutrition, around education, and we just want to hear from them what has been their experience so that we are able to frame our thinking around the needs of children, and not just from observing the children, but from actually hearing from themselves. And then that will be the first part of this session. The second part, we really want to hear, because as CSOs, apologies, there's child participation already going on here I'm at home. My children are making noise. I'll try and get them to be a bit quiet. So as I was saying, apologies, colleagues. As I was saying, the first part is about COVID-19 impact. The second part, we want to hear from the children, their experiences about the services that we are providing to them as CSOs. As we interact with them, what do they think is working? And what is it that they think we should improve in terms of our interaction with them and how we provide services for them. And then also, we thought best to hear from the children, what are the other opportunities for increased engagement and more meaningful engagement with the children. So we want to hear that in the second part of the discussion. But for the first part, I'm going to ask country by country for one child to represent the others and just share the experiences that they have gone through. So I am going to actually just use sort of the alphabet in terms of our 11 countries, and I will start by giving the opportunity to Angola, children from Angola, to just express themselves. If your presentations could be at least 5 to 7 minutes for this particular part of this session, so that we can have time to also discuss the rest of the issues. So please do come on board and participate. So I'll call upon Angola for now to come. Then after Angola, in alphabetical order, we will go to Botswana. And then from Botswana, we will go to Eswatini, and we will go like that. And if you see that you are not able to unmute yourself, please do raise your hand so that we can see and we can then assist you to be unmuted. So I don't know, Angola, are you there? Can you hear me? Are you ready to share your views? Angola, are you ready for your presentation? If not, perhaps you need to log on. Veronica, can you assist us to know whether Angola is ready? You can unmute yourself and let us know.
Yes, Angola is late.
Oh, okay.
Miss Maria is, yeah, she's preparing the children's.
Oh,
I think other country can start and she will put hand.
all right. Thank you so much, Veronica.
You're
So
welcome.
let's start with Botswana. Botswana, could you please kick off this discussion by sharing the impacts of COVID-19 on your education, on your health, and other issues affecting you as children?
Okay. Unfortunately, we did not manage to mobilize children due to the fact that due to the examinations, especially the children that we have been engaging in child participation. And well, generally, as we know that COVID-19 has been hitting schools in our country, and lucky enough, Childline Botswana has mobilized from other CSOs who are recently providing psychosocial support in quarantine. And they are affected in so many ways. And looking at the fact that they are quarantined and contact tracing happens, and sometimes a person panics and then they don't take what they need. Maybe they go to quarantine sites without having their books. And due to the examination period, we do have standard 7s in quarantine sites. And Mr. Machete just stepped out, and he could be able to tell you what interventions has been put into place to cater for children in quarantine sites. But I know that they are too writing the examinations. And the second issue would be that even though some children are quarantined with their parents, and we have issues where maybe the parents test positive and then the child tests negative, where they need to be isolated. And we have issues because maybe the child will not have completed their period in the quarantine site. Then we have to have an alternative to find somebody to take care of that child in quarantine. And yes, it has been an unfortunate that we don't have a child or children representing the child sector right now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, somebody would like to add up on something.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Hello, Chenge.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes,
The other aspect that COVID-19 has affected our children in terms of education is with regards to our children with disabilities. Quite a number of them have found themselves remaining at home, rehabilitation centers, to go and get services, and therefore it means they are remaining behind in terms of their education. And similarly, it also goes without saying that their health is also affected, because if their movement and their parents' movement are limited, and their parents are also losing jobs, it means even economically our children are disadvantaged. And we believe that more efforts need to be put together to ensure that children's welfare is taken as a priority, so that we can then enable them to have a better future. So and then the other things that we mentioned the education, we mentioned the health, and we mentioned the economic hardships that our children are facing together with their parents. During the first lockdown, for example, our government arranged that people who are disadvantaged would get food packages. Unfortunately, that was then, but the situation has not stopped. The needs on the ground continue. People continue to suffer, and so one could only wish that more support could be availed to children and their families. So we thought we could highlight that on behalf of our children who are sitting for their exams. Please pray for them. We thank you.
Thank you very much, Botswana, for representing the children and sharing the issues that you have observed. Yes, of course, you could not have taken away their right to education since they are writing exams, but thank you for sharing the issues.
You are most
now. Okay.
You are most welcome.
We will move on to Eswatini. We just want to have a round where each country gets an opportunity, and we want the children to be able to speak. Hopefully they are there. Eswatini.
Hi. My name is Bandile Mabuza. I'm from Eswatini.
Please go ahead.
You can hear me, right?
Loud and clear. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you.
And we can see you too. So, yeah.
All right. COVID-19 has not only impacted the children in Eswatini, but has impacted the world at large in so many different ways. But for Eswatini, I'm only going to focus on just three things: education, health, and the economy in terms of finances, with regards to children, of course. To begin with, looking at education, so many students had to remain at home because of the virus, and that led to the transition of education to what we call e-learning or virtual learning. So that means a lot of students had to do their learning online through radio, through TV, and all that. That means a number of children were disadvantaged in the sense that the people who are at an advantage are only those who have access to internet, who have access to TV, and all those sophisticated gadgets that they use for the virtual learning. Now, this means that the children who come from humble backgrounds or those who reside in derelict areas of the country did not have access to education. So that's somewhat a downside that came about as a result of COVID-19. Now, I want to proceed to health. Now, children, as we all know, are not in any way immune to the virus, even though the statistics state that there are only a handful of them that die as a result of the virus. But it's still worthy of noting that a number of them still catch the virus and their lives are somehow put on the line. Now, the government has put in quite a number of measures to combat the virus. This includes quarantining those who have caught the virus and making an effort to treat the symptoms to make sure that all people get to a state of full recovery. Now, quite a number of children have also been infected with the virus, and most have been able to recover because of their strong immune systems. But it goes without saying that they were really affected, and in quarantine facilities, more especially in our country, it becomes very hard to have access to learning because now it's not the situation where you have to sit behind a desk and there's a teacher in front of you. You have to do everything online, and the quarantine facilities in this country, particularly, are not so good since they place the educational lives of children at stake. Last but not least, I want to move on to the economic impact of COVID-19 on the lives of children. Now, children in the whole country are dependents. This means that they depend on their parents or they depend on organizations for funding, be it for education or cost of living, you name it. This means that COVID-19 has somewhat been able to cut down income on the people who fund and help the lives of these children, starting from parents. Most parents had their salaries cut down because they don't do the same amount of work they were doing when things were normal. So this means that children have to adapt to the new normal where they don't get certain things because their parents are going through some kind of a financial rough path. Um, I think this was the last thing. And now I want to look at children from Eswatini who are somehow internationals or children who find themselves in other countries. It becomes very hard to survive in a foreign country when you are depending on parents or institutions in your home country when you are in a different country. Let's take, for example, somebody who, this is just a hypothetical situation. Let's say someone depends on a certain company for funding and they are in university in a different country, university or college or high school or whatever. It becomes very hard because they get their allowances cut off, and that becomes very cumbersome for children. It becomes very hard to survive because surviving in a different country calls for one to be financially independent. And now they find themselves in situations where they have to depend on other people in the countries they find themselves in. And some governments have put in place certain measures for their children to be taken care of in the case where they find themselves in foreign countries. But Eswatini is one country that doesn't have so many embassies in certain countries, and it becomes very hard for children to get the support they need when they find themselves in foreign lands. I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. I thank you.
Thank you very much, children from Eswatini, for expressing those issues that you are facing around COVID-19 and bringing in the different dimensions, health, education, and even children who you are saying are living in other countries but are from Eswatini. So, we can move on to Angola. I see Angola is coming on board. Is that correct? Angola, are you ready? Okay, maybe not. But thank you, Eswatini, for sharing those views around COVID-19. And stand by and listen to what your other colleagues are going to be hearing from the other countries, and you'll find that there may be similarities that you can share amongst yourselves as children in the region. So if Angola is not ready, let's move on to this.
Apologies, there's just one
Yes.
other presentation from Eswatini. Sorry,
Okay,
sorry
are you able
about that.
to refocus the computer? You can only see their heads. Are you able to put their computer so that you can see their faces? You can see their faces. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, please go ahead, Eswatini.
COVID-19 has affected a lot of people, but I will talk about how it affected us as girls. Statistics has proven that the rate of teenage pregnancy has significantly increased during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is because during this partial lockdown, teenagers have a lot of time on their hands to do as they please. Schools are closed for most grades, and teenagers tend to use this time engaging in sexual intercourse, which are at most time unprotected. Hence, they end up pregnant. Most people have been retrenched from work because of the global pandemic. Parents are now at home with nothing to provide their kids with. The teenagers then opt to have romantic relationship with other people who may afford to cater from their needs. However, they have no control or any say in this relationship. All people insist on doing things their way, even if it means having unprotected sex. Above stated, the number of pregnant teens greatly increase. Since adolescence is a critical period when a girl's future potentially and opportunities can flourish through education, economic, and psychosocial support. Government must invest in programs and develop policies.
Em Angola. Aqui Angola, boa tarde. Alô, boa tarde.
Afternoon.
Fala de Angola. Angola.
This is from Angola.
Okay, do go ahead.
Sim, aqui fala Angola.
This is from Angola. Maria Julie is my name.
Questões
I do
apresentadas
have two issues to raise. When the pandemics affected or started in our country, and we were in a disadvantaged field because we have children whose parents, because of the economical crisis faced by the COVID-19, these parents abandoned their children. Many parents and abandoned their children. The number of parents and abandoning their children increased. The number of food crises also increased because parents do not have a purchasing power because many of them lost their employment. Some parents, even with their employment, whatever they make is not enough to provide for their children. Just to give you an example, we do have here three children who would like to share with you what happens on their day-to-day lives because of the harms caused by COVID-19. And the other issue is that our children, they feel they feel that they are not being protected by the relevant institutions. Angola has got a child protection law number 2021 from July 2016. This law is a child protection and child education and law. But in our country, this law it doesn't work. Why? Because when we talk about child human rights in Angola, people select children. Vulnerable children are not integrated. For instance, we have a large number of children who are unprotected, children who have lost their parents. There are many parents who abandon their children. And when it comes to a child sexual abuse, it is normal for a children aged 4 years old to be raped. This is for you to see once again that human rights in our country are not welcome. They are not respected. And if we have human rights here, they are not even fulfilled and respected. Most of the people here don't respect child human rights. I'm going to, two children are going to speak. One of them will say how she feels right now during this COVID period. Allow me to hand over the floor to the child, please. I want these pandemics to end because I'm tired of wearing a mask. I also would like the schools to open. My mother and father are going through difficulties, and I also would like that the Angolan state to look and take care of us. Thank you. Thank you, Krisa. My name is Anna Keta, and I would like the schools to reopen. Say something then. Say what you would like Cancer to do for you. I also would like my parents to start working. Tired of wearing a mask. My name is Edna Josimar. I would like the schools to reopen, and I also, because our sisters and brothers are staying home, I also would like a church to reopen and my parents to start working again. So you have heard from the Angolan children. These are children who complained on the COVID impact in our country. They are asking for milk, they are asking for bread, and sometimes their parents do not have anything to provide for them. So once again, this is an interaction with Angolan children, children attending primary school. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Angola. And I like that these are really young children who are still in primary school, but are able to express what they are facing. And I hear they are tired of wearing masks. And, you know, I think this is common across the board. Thank you so much, colleagues in Angola. Obrigado.
Obrigada, sim.
Yes, for what,
Estamos juntos.
for mobilizing the children.
Yeah.
But now we want to hear from more children. I'm going to call upon Lesotho for them to share their experiences with COVID-19 and also the chat that they already had prepared issues to do with their engagement with PSOs. So please go ahead, Batum and your colleagues.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tawela Munyan. I am 10 years old. I was first diagnosed with diabetes when I was 8 years old. I am a T1D patient. I use insulin. My life depends on it. This is my story during this time of COVID-19. I ran out of insulin, and when we went to the hospital to get it, the nurse told us to go back home because they didn't have any protective. We had no option but to buy at the pharmacy. What about kids without parents? Only God knows. The police, on the other hand, stopped us for many times on the way, and we had to explain ourselves every time. So embarrassing when we were sick.
My name is Majola Macha, and I'm going to speak about how COVID-19 has abused us through the eyes of a person living with diabetes. People who are living with diabetes, they were neglected from health facilities. They had to stop and explain themselves while going to health facilities. I'm going to talk about how we have been abused as a result of COVID-19. Our right to socialize, our rights were violated. We were no longer able to socialize and grow as people. We were unable to perform our duties as children, and we had to go and work because our parents have been have lost their jobs. Our rights were neglected. We had to find ways to help in our families, and we were neglected at hospitals.
My name is Ricky Zarapoya. I'm here to talk about what the CSO, let's say, my Child Rights Network is doing, what is working and what is not. Let's say, concentrates on teaching children about their rights and responsibilities, but it excludes their parents. This is disadvantageous in a way that a parent may force their child to work in the fields in substitute for school, and the child may try to communicate with the parent by informing him or her about the right to education. This is where the problem arises. The parent may think the child is disrespectful. This is like some parents don't really appreciate being talked back by kids. They see it as disrespectful and think that that word is obsolete. The worst case scenario is that the parents may actually engage in violent acts to enforce supremacy, which is likely happening right now during the COVID-19, since children are actually told to stay at home and study online. So a lot of parents are sending them to work and everything. However, this could be avoided if both children and parents are informed of them. That's that, let's say, my rights and responsibilities of a child. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I start, please allow me to give my respects to the board that governs CRNSA the members of the CRNSA community. My name is Ratebelie. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Lesotho was already facing major challenges like the HIV and AIDS, widespread poverty, and food insecurities. The COVID-19 made the spicing on the cake on children and nutritional statuses. Lesotho experiences a great malnutrition and to a much less extent of and sorghum. Yes, requirements, but the share of lipids in the supply is lower than the recommendation, and that of the protein at the lower limit. Production, low income and rising stable food prices contribute to worsen the food insecurities among the population and children. The Department of Health has spoken about the lack of recent national representation data on vitamin A deficiency due to the COVID-19 pandemic, in also anemia on that. So to combat the micronutrient, which have ladies and gentlemen, the improvement to be done is to constant sanitation, nutrition puzzles, availability of market in rural areas, comparability of low and nutrition of food and food cost. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Malifa. So I'm here to talk about effect of COVID-19 to our education. As our colleague Eswatini talked about it, because of COVID-19, schools were closed. The Ministry of Education introduced online learning, which was very expensive and not accessible to most children, especially the rural areas, especially the children in the rural areas. Buying of data, smartphones, laptops, TVs, and radios was expensive to our parents, and most of them lost their jobs because of COVID-19. Thank you. I'm Mahau. I'm going to talk about the effects of COVID-19 in our education. Though the e-learning was introduced, there was a low lack of understanding because there was no one to explain things to us properly. And parents still couldn't afford data. And education can't do this.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to actually present on what we, let's say my child rights ambassadors, think can be improved, and also the areas of opportunity on engagement to protecting children during this pandemic. Well, firstly, it is a fact now that there has been a concrete foundation on child rights advocacy. And as a result, this led to an increase in capacity building and has further improved the relationship between, let's say, CRNSA and other like-minded organizations. But now accommodation for the already established relationships is much necessary, because as we engage and form relationships with these organizations, the different projects that we will be working on require for us to be working on a much similar frequency, as this will allow a much more increased success rate. Moving on, emphasis on international cross-learning might be the best solution, as organizations such as South Africa Child Rights Coalition, say for example, had already built an immense amount of member organizations within on child rights advocacy. Learning from such nations and lobbying children with these kinds of existing strategies and developing and structuring layouts can actually better equip them with skills on attaining a greater external relation skills, and also equipping them with ethics on networking, on networking with other existing CSOs, not only on a local level, but also on a regional and continental level. Coordination might also be the best factor to actually look at as an opportunity to engage with children as CSOs. Say, for example, I am part of Letsema, and now I want to join another organization, and I want to work on a certain project that really piqued my interest in another organization, say in Angola. The right to actually engage in this different projects actually might equip me with becoming a better leader within the organization that I am part of. Then later on, we move on to engaging with the education systems to allow children to sit through processes on decision-making within the child right clubs that Lesotho is going to be adopting through Letsema Child Rights Network. And also, as we had actually had an opportunity to issue the Children's Parliament, adopting existing strategies and structures from countries like Zimbabwe might actually accelerate or catalyze the development of this new development, and also collaborating on cross-cutting problems with other organizations. Example, Zambia on child reporters might even help alleviate some of the problems that had not been yet presented to us. Moving on to ascertaining security for children through the media. As we know, Ndodo News has been doing a very great job, and of which I feel to express my utmost gratitude for even allowing us to attend the previous meetings, the previous Zoom meetings, to actually be able to express our opinions as children. Now, the best solution or the best opportunity we can actually engage in here is, supposing now Tanzania is working on a new project and actually giving inside learning to other countries on if such a problem, like for example, child trafficking, if a problem like child trafficking actually arises, and now they have different strategies on how to approach and put an end to this problem. But now disseminating information to other countries actually provides them with inside information. And I think from these main ideas, you can actually pick on which ones are the best ones, because we as children, we also have a vision of becoming better future leaders. And with your help, and also providing us with the opportunity to start learning as children, we will become greater leaders. Thank you very much. I think that is all from Lesotho. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, children from Lesotho, for your presentations. And I already noticed that you talked about COVID-19 and its impact on your life. Already began to talk about your relationship with the CSOs in Lesotho, which I think perhaps as we go forward, looking at our time, we can actually do that. You can talk about COVID-19, but you can also bring out the issues around the services being provided to you by CSOs and what you think are the opportunities. And thank you, children from Lesotho. You seem to be quite well researched. You already know best practices in other countries on how children can better participate in policies and in their own influencing the policies within their countries. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to move on to Malawi and request that you can cover both the COVID aspect as well as the how you as children are working with CSOs. So Malawi, over to you.
Or am I missing something? So maybe we are next.
Hello, my name is Momiawa and I'm here with you. Hello, my name is Yomiawa and I'm here with you. Patricia, Vulani, Asmen Marwell, Vanessa Kalshiwe, Godfrey Tanyamura. I'm here to discuss about COVID-19 and how it has affected us in our education. COVID-19 has affected us in many ways. It has made us to stop going to school. Now we have opened our school, and because of that, a lot of children now are dropping out of school. A lot of children are going to work, and some are getting married. We don't know how, when this COVID-19 will end, we don't know what will happen to the children in Malawi. People say that children should have their own rights, and we know that our rights has our own responsibility. So since we are in holidays, a lot of children had a lot of memory loss. We have forgotten all about it. Our notes. We know that there was online learning, but we know that little people are able to afford online learning. Like I was not able, so I was just reading a book. But as we know that reading books can help, we need an explanation. So because of that, many children have been suffering. Many children have been forced in early marriages, and a lot of children are forced to get married because what will benefit them in learning. So a lot of boys have dropped out of school because they want to help their parents, because their parents have lost their job. They're just sitting at home. They have siblings that they are not eating. They're just staying hungry because of COVID-19. So if COVID-19 will end, what will become of Malawi? Now you give just a name. Nothing will be improperly. Will just be in a mess. So children have been affected in many ways because of this COVID-19. So I think COVID-19 will stop. It will really help us see children because we have stopped our education. Our parents are not working, so we are not having food. We are not going to school. We are not training. We are just empty. What will become of Malawi if children do not work, do not train? What will become of it? Who will be the leader of tomorrow? So please, I just want to say, please, we want the coronavirus and the pandemic to end so that we can be in peace and Malawi should be restored to its own glory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malawi, for your presentation. Can you hear me? I hope
Yes,
you
we
can all hear
yeah,
me
can
because
you
I
change
see
it?
as if
Switch
my
on your camera. Switch on your camera.
Okay. All right. I saw as if my screen had just frozen. Thank you so much, Malawi, for that presentation. Now we
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Now we can move on to Mozambique. Would like to hear from the children in Mozambique. I don't know, Malawi, had you concluded your presentation? Had you concluded?
Yes, we have.
Okay, great. So let's move on to Mozambique so that we can hear from the children in Mozambique. I hope colleagues in Mozambique.
Minha colega Morga está atrás disso. Vou saber o que está acontecendo.
Okay, Ma'am Emilia.
Você está a falar com a minha colega de Gaza. Ela diz que está online. Certamente vou entrar a qualquer momento. Obrigada.
Thank you. I hope the children are now ready in Mozambique. Ma Emilia?
Sim, olha, eles perderam sinal. Pode avançar com outro país, onde retornar.
Maybe we should have another country, and after that we are going to have Mozambique. Maybe we should have another country now.
Okay, thank you. So we can go to Namibia whilst we wait for Mozambique. Jackie, I hope the children in Namibia are ready. Can you hear me, Jackie? I'm not getting a response from Jackie. Can we move on to South Africa? We will come back to Mozambique and Namibia. South Africa?
I don't think South Africa had mobilized children.
And move on to Tanzania whilst we wait for the Mozambique and Namibia to present. Tanzania, are you ready? Ah, okay, there we are. Hi. Please go ahead. Sorry, are you unmuted? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Just check whether you are unmuted. We can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you. So I hope you can get your sound on and be unmuted. Please go ahead. We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. As I said before, we are children from Tanzania, and my name is Rahabu Francis.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
They need to unmute. They can unmute themselves. I think they have two gadgets, and one gadget is giving feedback. So I don't know. I think it's Ombeni or Dumisani. One of them has an extra gadget. One of them has to switch off the gadget so that we can have only one gadget having sound.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but if you can mute the other gadget so that you just have one gadget unmuted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, that's better. Thank you, go ahead.
Okay, as I said before, I'm going to explain three aspects: in social aspect, education aspect, and economic aspect. In education aspect, schools are called because students can be protected from the transmission or the spread of COVID-19, and thus led us to stop our studies and going to stay at home without any accessibility of reading materials or books or through internet because other families can't afford for the expenses for getting studies from internet. So children stayed at home without any knowledge about education, and we stayed at home almost for 3 months, and that's a huge problem because 3 months without going to school, it's a big effect because other children can lose their materials and their knowledge easily. In the economic aspect, other students were boarders, were staying in boarding school. So when they came back home, parents were really busy to provide their basic needs and to give them a balanced diet, because you find maybe other families are having a large number of family members, so parents were busy working so they can give their children whatever they want in part of biological health and nutrition. But even if there was COVID-19, so other parents, their work were prohibited from going, so because they are needed to be isolated. So you find parents staying at home, all the family members are at home, no one is going to work. So children stayed at home without any biological development in part of nutrition. They became nutritional weak. Another aspect is in social aspect. During COVID-19, during isolation, children stayed at home, but they were allowed some of the children to go outside and play with other kids. So during that time, many children were developing bad behaviors like joining
in drug abuse groups or joining theft activities. So they became theft and developed other unwanted activities in the society. And another thing that the rate of early pregnancies increased in that period because others were raped or others were abused in a sexual way. So girls, most of them, they went back to school with pregnancies, and others didn't go back to school anymore. In part of intervention,
I can't hear you anymore. Still can't hear you, sorry. Unless if it's only me, but I think the others also cannot hear you. I hope you can hear me.
we can't hear her, the presenter. By different kind of people.
Okay.
Also, another thing is that our government provided strict laws to those people who are still developing the legacy social practice like FGM, early marriage, and other negative social practice. Also, government and organization in general, they protected children with serious isolation, and also they help us to develop education of developing basic principles of personal hygiene. Thank you, and I think that's all I have to say. I would like to invite my fellow children to express their opinions also.
Hello, my name is Sarafina from Tanzania. I like to advise government in our country or in other country to be attention for any disease or problem which can face for days. First, I like to advise governments that not be attention for disease have another problem which can force like children who have problem which can face us in Tanzania or another Tanzania. Like Tanzania in some village have early marriage, pregnant. So government should be attention to protect with us. And I like to thank for our government to support us during COVID-19, which government have be hard to government closes the schools that which protect us to avoid affected with that disease. And I say thanks for organization and government to support and protect us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's all for Tanzania.
Se Helênio, peço para dizer a coisa, a filista para ativar a Morga, que ela havia perdido o sinal. Então, para convidar ela a entrar na sala, por favor. Obrigada.
Are you done from Tanzania?
Yes, we are done.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. If you feel you have any extra issues that you have been heard during the time when perhaps sound could have been interrupted, please do type them in the chat so that we can still capture those issues. Otherwise, thank you so much. Now we can go back to Namibia. I advise Namibia is ready now.
Okay, thank you.
Over to you, Jackie.
Thank you, Chengetai. Namibia will be present.
Good afternoon, people. I'm Hitler, and I'm representing the Hopeful Children's Center. Okay, I would like to cover on the impact of COVID-19 from my experience. COVID-19 has disadvantages and advantages. For the advantages, COVID-19 feed people without food from April month through COVID-19. People got money, which had financial problems. For example, in Namibia, we have experienced people that got 750 Namibian dollars. Some crimes were taken seriously because during the time of COVID-19, a lot of crimes happened. So police officers had to start taking crime seriously. People who slept under bridges, trees, houses, who had no homes, people like homeless people were provided with tents to sleep under a roof, and they were also provided with food. Now, the disadvantages. COVID-19 brought a lot of disadvantages that a lot of teenagers or children could recognize. For myself, a lot of children, or should I say girls, got impregnated by boys. But still, this rate of teenage pregnancy is still going on and on and on. Starting off, it had an effect on my school. I had to stay home for about like 2 months, and I couldn't afford for online studying. So what I had to do is collect all my books and study. And this happened during the COVID-19 time. But people who had no internet services wouldn't allow themselves not to study. For me, I had to study. I had to get contact with my teacher to tell her that I don't have internet or phones or laptops to connect to the internet, or should I say the online studying. This had us under the state of emergency for a long time. So COVID-19 also has a disadvantages on economic impact. For example, businesses had to close down because of COVID-19 orders. A lot of economic reasons, like for example, no more tourism because borders are closed, no more electrical businesses for like no more things being imported or being exported. Okay. COVID-19. What needs to be done for these things are that we need to be helped with everything I mentioned right now. And in order for us to be helped, we also need to bring our part into it. COVID-19 is that nothing can beat COVID-19. But as for my experience, I can say that I can beat COVID-19 with my education. And that's it for now. And I think I'm done with my story.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I start, I would just like to give a special thanks to CRNSA for giving us this platform to let our voices be heard. My name is Tangeni.
impacts of COVID-19 to Namibia and Namibia's children. So I will start off with education, or let me just say I will start off with the household and children being abused and everything. As for schools, for the most of the kids, schools was the safest places because they got abused thoroughly at home, and school was the only place they like really felt safe in. As for education, there was like a delay, 2 months, let me say 4 months delay of education. They weren't really school, so we had to take online classes, and most of the kids couldn't afford online classes. So it was also like a problem, and for us that classes, some of our schools actually didn't also know what to do with the kids on the online groups. The economic impact of COVID-19 in Namibia was a very disadvantage to our country. Some parents had to be retrenched from their businesses, and they couldn't afford to pay the necessary goods and services to their kids at home. So kids were like lack of nutrition, and they couldn't eat on a daily basis. Kids didn't have the platform to be themselves anymore because they had to help out at home with work to be done in order to get money or food at home. I thank you for listening to me.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for being here. I will be talking about the impact of COVID-19. I would look at the advantage. COVID-19 actually brought a bond between families, mothers and children. It really brought them, it really looked at parents to bond with their children. And COVID, at the disadvantage, COVID-19 also brought like bad images for those who are being abused at home. For those who are being abused at home, they couldn't really take this COVID-19 pandemic. I think they really prayed for this COVID-19 pandemic or state of emergency to end. And education-wise, COVID-19 actually touched on our education. Some of us lost interest in education, and some of us had to do online, but we couldn't really, some of us didn't have smartphones for online study. And and I'll also look at the teenage pregnancy. Teenage pregnancy also went really high in Namibia. And yeah, I guess that's it. My big structure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christine, a student from the University of Namibia. I'm going to talk about how COVID has affected me as a student, especially on education. Since March till today, we haven't had like normal classes. It has been online. And the online classes is not a constant thing. And when it is, it's only the lecturers teaching. So there's no the thing of you asking if you don't understand something. It's not like when you're in class, you can ask and tell the lecturer where you don't understand or not. So if you don't understand, you have to go back on your own and struggle, which hasn't been easy. And unfortunately for the University of Namibia, they make our students write exams in November, which we find very unfair because we've been having online classes, which hasn't been consistent. And again, we don't really understand the depth of what we are learning. It's more or less like we are doing our assignments just to finish and submit. It's more or less of saying that we just have to do things to be done with it, but we're not learning, we're not having the concept for us to understand. Like if you had to ask me generally, like, what have you understood from March till today, I wouldn't have a much base on what to say because it's been really hard for us So it's really unfair that we have to write exams for it, because you might find that you might have high CA marks because yes, we are doing our assignments, we are doing the quizzes online because that's what we are told to do. But when it comes to now actually studying for the exam, it will actually be hard for the students to do so, because catching up from the work of, basically let's just say the work from the whole year till November will actually be hard, and we find most students will actually fail. And I feel like it wouldn't be their fault because of what's happening right now. So yeah, so I just feel like if the government would do better when it comes to the system of education during during this COVID, it would be much better. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Opalis, a third year student at the University of Namibia in Science and Technology. So a lot of my colleagues spoke about the disadvantages of what COVID-19 had on the education system. Personally, I can't relate because I've been a distance student since second year, and I actually appreciate COVID-19 because there were modules I was struggling with, and due to that, I passed with distinctions. But like everything has its advantages and its disadvantages. So for me, I'll start with the advantages. Like what I said, COVID-19 has had its advantages for me in terms of me passing my school. And also when it comes to my personal life and with friendships, because what COVID-19 did was show you who is there for you, show you who you can count on. Because most of the times we relate or we talk to people because we see them often. And when this pandemic hit us, we were not ready for it. Financially, spiritually, emotionally, we were not ready for it. So a lot of us went into isolation, and during such times, it actually shows you who's there for you and who has your back for you. And I won't lie, I actually appreciate the people I have today, and it's because of COVID. You know, I tried my part with certain people and to communicate with certain people, but they have showed you that without physically seeing them, that there's no relationship, and that's not how life is supposed to be. And like I said, the advantages. Also, what I appreciate is that it showed us that whatever happens, there's always an option. Like this happened and we couldn't go to school physically, we couldn't go to work. Personally, I started a job in January, and because of COVID, I was retrenched because finances, they can't afford me. And it didn't stop me from saying, okay, now I'm retrenched, what's gonna happen, the end of the world. I picked myself up and I started a business. I sell cupcakes and I enjoy it. It pays for a lot of things that I do. I'm just saying that a lot of us use the COVID-19 as an excuse to be lazy, as an excuse to blame the system, as an excuse to say, nah, it did this, it did that, it did this. And yes, it did do certain things, but it also opened up doors. It opened up doors to create new bonds. It opened up doors to discipline yourself. I mean, going to school, yes, we had to sign in like a register to show your attendance, but now you're online. Are you studying for yourself, or are you just studying to get a degree? And it really showed that most of the learners are just studying to get the degree. So if you can faithfully attend classes online, it shows that you're doing it. It shows that you are doing it for yourself and not for just having a paper. But let's go to the disadvantages. And the disadvantages are very near and dear to my heart. Like I think Hitler said, a lot of girls fell impregnated. And I think Tangeni said, for a lot of students, school has always been a safe home. And because of the regulations that were put in place, a lot of us were left to fend for ourselves at home. A lot of us fell into depression. A lot of us had no one to talk to. And all those are true. All those are real life situations that we face. And we're not very aggressive, and during lockdown, it actually showed us that the Namibian government has a lot of resources for, I wouldn't say things that I find unnecessary, but things that I find petty. Like there was this period when we had a curfew to be in the house by 8. And the officers were actually taking videos as to how strict they are to make sure we're in the house at 8, how strict they are to make sure we're wearing our masks and so forth. But when it comes to girls going missing, when it comes to rape cases, you know, we don't see that same vuma, we don't see that same enthusiasm to look for these girls or to save these girls. And it just showed me that our government is slacking. Our government has time for a lot of unnecessary things, but when it comes to saving our children, saving our girls, helping our man child, our boy child to actually become the best they can be, they're not putting in as much effort. They have money to buy GTI into a safe orphanage. They do not have that. To put a girl child into what can be a safe haven for her, they do not have that. So personally, I feel like we can improve. We should improve as a Namibian nation. We should improve. We can improve, and we will improve if we put a stand. If we don't weaken ourselves, if we don't fall short of what we're fighting for. And yeah, I am grateful to the experience that COVID has brought us. It has made us ready, it has made us powerful as a nation and as youth. And it's amazing to see what such a pandemic can actually bring out of a lot of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namibia. Very interesting perspectives around COVID-19 and its impact. And you've brought out interesting advantages as well as the disadvantages that you have outlined. So thank you so much. I think it's very thought-provoking in terms of priority of how government resources children's issues, because they have money for, you just discover now with COVID, they have money for certain things, and yet they don't prioritize some issues affecting children. Thank you so much for that. Now, I think perhaps, can we come back to Mozambique? Emilia, are you ready? Are the children in Mozambique ready?
Mozambique is facing some technological issues with one of the members in Manjakazi. They're still trying to solve this.
All right, that's fine. So perhaps we can hear from Zambia and then Zimbabwe. So Zambia, if you can go ahead, please. Zambia, are you ready?
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Kamuti. I am a child rights advocate at Advocacy for Child Justice here in Zambia. Okay, I'll be with my colleagues here to actually talk about one of the challenges that the Zambian children have faced due to the coronavirus here in Zambia. So one of the challenges that I will want to bring out, and I feel has actually come out of all this, from all the countries actually, is the impact of COVID-19 on the education sector. So I've heard various countries have explained, but I think I would have to say it in a better term, or maybe in a simpler way, or in a way that the children here in Zambia feel the COVID-19 has impacted us. So the first thing I would like to say is the education sector, or maybe the education system has been impacted greatly here in Zambia, in that when the COVID-19 was on the rise here in Zambia, or just when we had it was introduced when it came, schools were forced to close, and then most children were now sent back home to stay with their parents in a place where now they were not safe, because schools in Zambia, or maybe I should say in every place in Africa, in the world, are seen to be safe spaces where children can express themselves and mingle with their friends and actually grow. So because the right to education is a fundamental right to every child's development, it was it impacted the education system greatly. So some of the children that went home to stay with their parents were actually living together with the potential abusers per se, or the people who abuse them. So now we had a rise in the cases of child abuse. And then when we had a rise, we also have like reduced reporting, because obviously everyone's attention was, or maybe is at the moment, running away, or maybe moving away from the challenges that the children are facing, like child abuse, sexual abuse, defilement, and things like that, to mitigating, or rather fighting the coronavirus. So because of that, now many children live with the abusers, and of course, some of them have been abused and actually don't know where to report or where to go. So the education sector has been affected because now we saw that schools were closed for close to 6 months for non-examination classes, meaning that these learners were staying home and they never really had anything to do. But even with the online education platforms, the introduction of TV and radio learning, it is noted that most children actually were not able to access the e-learning because they never had, or maybe they don't have access to such. Most children here in Zambia might not be very conversant or very literate when it comes to internet and things like that. And most of them actually don't know how they can go about the radio and just listen to the programs. And also, it has been a challenge to the physically challenged and even those that, I should say, our friends that live with special abilities, for example. So now you will see that even when we have a coronavirus update, which is of educational, of course, you would always have this person, the interpreter, in the corner. Sometimes you would not even see them. So for those that actually, is it the visually impaired also, and our friends who cannot actually hear were affected because they don't get the information that they need in order to understand what the coronavirus is. So now the education system, or maybe the education sector, has been affected because now the children were only recently taught to go back to school when we had a rise in the cases of COVID-19. So now that poses a great threat to the health of the children here in Zambia, because when they go back to school, they mingle with different friends. And then in a classroom, of course, we have people, a normal classroom here in Zambia, even before the coronavirus, we had about close to 100 learners in a classroom, which is of course, a big number when it comes to pupil-teacher ratio. So now, in the effort of trying to facilitate and find measures in having social distancing, some classes were split and made into two. But even in that, we can tell just how some classes were congested, because even 40 is a big number, because every learner comes from a different area. It means that every learner has a different association, and every head actually has a different family. So if a learner gets the virus from school, they take it to their parents, then the parents take it to a place, and it goes like that. So the education system has been affected because some learners also do not understand exactly what they're supposed to do when it comes to learning. So we had the learners stay home so that at least they can have social distancing for the examination classes. Actually, the whole idea was for the non-examination classes to open next year, which of course would be a disadvantage to them because they would have to repeat a grade, you see. So now, after this now, the government said that all the learners should go back to school, and we all went back to school. Now, the challenge that is there at the moment is that we're just too many. And then because we're too many, to facilitate for social distancing, the classes have been split in every school, actually. So we have sessions. We have like the first session and the second. Some even go up to the third, so that everyone can learn at that particular moment. So now you'll find that learners only stay in class for 2 hours. 2 hours of learning after a close to 1 hour walk to school. and then you just stay in class for 2 hours. And then in a week, some learners just go to school twice or 3 times, which is of course something that is very bad. And then we also have cases of now teachers feeling as though some learners are not so important and then prioritizing others. For example, the examination classes have been prioritized because now they feel like there is more to be done in that area because these learners are writing an exam. So some classes have been put on hold, or maybe the learning is not as serious. So there is also another area that has been affected, which is, of course, I've spoken about child protection, but I think it is best I speak, I broaden the explanation so that you understand it better. So child protection has been affected because some learners now were forced to go home. And then in the homes that they lived in, you find that they lived with potential abusers, and some homes, of course, never had money, as everyone has said in this meeting, that some parents could not afford to pay for their for their children's school online and things like that. So the learners were now, or maybe the children now, were forced to go into the streets, to go and sell, and so that they can earn something for the family and everyone to eat. Now, in that vein, you find that most children now were not protected on the streets, because if a child is sent on the street to sell something, it means that you're exposing that child to COVID-19. And most children now were exposed to getting the coronavirus. And then you find that most of them were actually abused on the streets that they went on. So because of this, the COVID-19 situation in Zambia has affected children mostly, because now the children that went to the streets, we're at a higher risk of getting the coronavirus. And mostly you would find that some parents don't take the coronavirus very seriously. They would walk with a child on the street and not have a mask for them, but protect themselves. Okay, so this has been one of the challenges that the children here in Zambia, have faced in this wake of COVID-19. I think some more will be explained better by my friends.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Msoelike, and I'm also a child rights activist back here in Zambia. So that was a good explanation by my friend Kamuti, but my explanation or my discussion will be based on issues that have to do with health and social protection, and how children have actually been affected in these areas. So most of the things that I'll be bringing out is in relation to what my friend has actually spoken about. So back here in Zambia, we've got what we call safe spaces for children in different clinics and hospitals around the country. But with the coming of the pandemic of coronavirus, a lot of children were not meeting to discuss issues that were pertaining to comprehensive sexuality education, and it was going to determine the results by the end of the day. So with the closure of these safe spaces or friendly corners, a lot of young people, a lot of children were at risk of actually indulging into illicit activities such as substance abuse and having untimely pregnancies and falling into teen marriage. So those are some of the risks that were mainly associated with the pandemic in relation to their health in children. And other issues that really got my attention as an activist back here is that a lot of children's nutrition was actually affected in the vein or in looking at it from a perspective of how the dollar has actually been performing in this pandemic. A lot of families were unable to actually buy the essential meals or the essential foods that children require for them to actually develop. And it is actually a principle in the UNCRC that every child has got the right to development and survival. But looking at how our economy has been faring for some time now, it has been difficult for a lot of families to actually buy the right food so that a lot of children could or might grow healthy. But on the other hand, I would like to commend the government on the response that they took, although it wasn't 100% in response to COVID-19 and children. They ensured that the things that were required for testing were there, and children were also, like schools were closed to prevent a further spread of the coronavirus. So in that context, in as much as the education was was affected, I believe the government was trying as much as possible to prioritize the health of children back here in Zambia. The second issue that I want to bring out is the issue of social protection. Social protection is actually a pillar of different things. It also includes issues of education and issues of child protection, as my friend earlier alluded to. So under social protection back here in Zambia, we look at how families fare in their economic aspect. For example, this is the only platform where the government tries as much as possible to help those families that are actually affected by different things like the pandemic itself. In the budget, the 2021 budget, at least they increased the monthly allowances that they give to families from 90 kwacha in Zambian kwacha to at least 120. So from there, we can see that there was an improvement, and we can believe that some families will actually be stable. But drawing back ourselves to how the dollar has been performing, certain things or certain nutrients that these children need to have for them to grow properly, it will be hard for families to actually buy for them. So and the other issue that was actually troubling me as an activist back here is the issue of children that are born in prisons. How has the response been in line to COVID-19, and what kind of things have they been like in terms of food? What have they been taking? So under social protection, there are a lot of issues, and in a lot of veins, children have actually been affected. And my friend, the other speaker that will take the podium, will try as much as possible to explain and elaborate more on how the SOs have actually been engaging children in different issues that affect them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Daiso Lungu. Just want to cover up from where my friends left. I'd like to start with what government did during COVID-19. I feel COVID-19 gave an opportunity to children living on the streets. What happened here in Zambia, what has happened here in Zambia is that through the partnership of CSOs, government took a stance in integrating children living on the streets by taking them in orphanages and also providing aid so that some children who was living on the streets were educated and also protected from the pandemic, which is a good move to ensure that each and every child, despite them being in different circumstances, they are protected and their health is safeguarded. Another thing, just to add on from where my friend left, COVID-19 during this period, CSOs came together, ensuring that they provide support in areas concerning nutrition and also other supporting needs like psychologically, and also trying to support government in areas where circumstantial children provided for, because when you look at the way the policy works, the circumstantial children are not budgeted for, but through the partnership with CSOs, they came together ensuring that children born in prisons or circumstantial children are catered for and also they are safeguarded. Again, COVID-19 impacted so many lives in a way that when it comes to issues concerning child sexual abuse or violence itself, in areas like villages or far from rural areas where issues concerning sexual abuse or other crimes are to be reported for were being delayed because they need to cover a long distance for them to follow up a case so that ensure that that perpetrator is brought to book. So a lot of cases were being delayed, and in these justice systems, we have had children who are in conflict with the law, meaning that during this period, there are some children whose cases also were delayed, and which is, we can say, might be their threat to their freedom and their rights, because diversion must apply every time when a child is thrown into conflict. And the more they delay, again, that may have a psychological impact on the life of that child. However, our stance and core is that in each and every planning or each and every programming despite either COVID-19 or any other problem that may come on board. Government must ensure that they consider the plight of children in fighting all these vices. I'd like to make mention that the effort by the government ensuring that information is all packaged came on short notice because there was need for them to quite all right to plan ahead. That at some point in life you can find yourself in situations which you don't understand, because COVID-19 was something which was not planned for, but through the effort that government has undertaken, at least we can say they have done something that has really helped out a lot of children. But our core is that in areas like education, social protection, health, and other essential sectors that's supposed to be guarded, they must ensure that they increase the funding and they cater for those who are really in need. I'll give an example of social protection. In as much, my friend has alluded that the certain percentage or certain money that is families do benefit, but there's an aspect of access, because not every person may find it easy to access that aid which comes from the government through social protection, through social welfare, they say. So meaning that if our government and also through the cooperation with CSOs, they are to provide aid in form of money to support these families, they must ensure that the channels which they use, they do not just favor the people who know the people who are working in these spaces, but they favor each and every person as long as they are a citizen of that country. And we'd like to ensure that in each and every process, the voices of children are heard, despite them having different abilities. I would like to state also that there was an issue, for example, children living with autism had find the challenge for them to cope up with COVID-19 because of their condition which they are in. So in the packaging of information, the media as well, we do encourage them as well to find ways and means that can be able to safeguard, or maybe they can be able to include each and every person in ensuring that the information which they package in the fight against COVID-19, it helps every person to understand what we're going through. In as much the economy has been opened, people have become so reluctant, they don't follow. There are few people who are following the guidelines, because there are some who still believe that COVID-19 is a myth. But again, we are saying that despite us living the new normal, we must be able to follow the health guidelines which have been set before us and ensure that we have a generation of healthy children who can contribute to the growth of our nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zambia, for all those comments and your experiences for the children in Zambia around COVID-19. Now we are left with Zimbabwe and Mozambique, so I'll go to Zimbabwe first, and then we'll hear whether Mozambique finally managed to sort out the participation of the children. So over to you, Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Chair. So here I have colleagues from Zimbabwe. We have child representatives. We are 5 of us, but due to time constraints, we'll just have a few of us contributing to the discussion. So to my left, I have Ruarashe and Nkosilati, who are going to be taking us through the presentation from the children from Zimbabwe.
Hello everyone.
Opa, Moçambique já está pronto, por favor.
My name is Vanessa.
I think Mozambique has just jumped in. Mozambique is ready.
So I'm just going to mention a few issues that children have been facing during the COVID-19 era. So first of all, I'm going to be talking about children living with disabilities. So during the lockdown, as you know, there are different types of disabilities that there are. And children has not been able to access medication. This includes children with epilepsy. They require medication for them not to have serious seizures. But however, due to the lockdown, they were not able to move from one place to another and get these medication. And also when they go to hospitals and clinics, they were not given this medication because they were not available. And also children living with hearing impairment. Some parents cannot even sign, as in they cannot communicate in sign language. And most of the times children were at school, at boarding schools, where they were able to communicate with their friends who also use sign language in their teachers for communication. But because of the lockdown, children were at home with their parents, and even if a child has a problem, they're not able to communicate to their parents because they're not able to sign. And then right now in Zimbabwe, we are in summer, and children living with albinism do not have the creams which prevents them from getting sunburns and getting their skin affected. And also the cream for persons living with albinism, it's very expensive in Zimbabwe. It costs like $15, $20, and for an average person who gets 500 RTGS a month, it is not reasonable. Not to mention children living with intellectual disabilities, they are prone to sexual harassment and sexual violence, and they're not even able to communicate with people because people do not understand them, which include persons with hearing impairment. They cannot communicate, they cannot speak out because most people do not even understand what they'll be saying. So this becomes a challenge to children during this lockdown or during the COVID-19 era, because back then they could communicate to their teachers and also communicate on issues that are affecting them. And then also moving on to sanitary pads. Right now in Zimbabwe, sanitary pads, the cheapest it's going for 85 to 90 RTGS, which is most likely $1, and of which for girls, they cannot even afford that. So this leads to children using unsafe materials such as cloths, which is not even healthy, and this can even lead to cervical cancer. And also, I strongly believe that pads should be for free, just like as condoms are for free. I mean, for a girl to go on their menstruation cycle, it is not by choice. And for someone to actually engage in sexual activity, it is by choice. So I actually feel like the government should put more money into making sure that sanitary pads are for free or are at a reasonable price where people actually can afford. And then also moving to food security. As we know that during the lockdown, so many people lost their jobs, and this led to thousands of children suffering from malnutrition because parents could not even afford to buy a simple balanced diet meal for their children, which results to children engaging into sexual activities so that they earn money, into sex workers so that they earn money and buy food for themselves. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about security. Child security in Zimbabwe has been a problem, and it is very crucial that the government engage in making sure that children are safe. In Zimbabwe, in the last 2 months or 3 months, it is not this month, we actually had a child who was found dead. And this was due to rituals which were happening. But I feel like that if there was police which was placed in communities patrolling and make sure that children are safe, this could have never happened. And also, I'm just gonna get into school dropouts. There are a lot of children who dropped out of school because of COVID-19, because children had nothing to look forward to. They did not even have anything to do at home, which made them lead to getting into sexual activities. And in Zimbabwe, we all know that most parents will actually send you to the person who have impregnated you, and this leads to child marriages. And children, they do not even have enough money to actually look out for a family. So this leads to future doctors and future nurses and presidents being let down. I will leave this time to my other colleagues to exaggerate on other issues that children are facing in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Ngoslati Mube. I'm a child representative from Advocates of Hope, Zimbabwe. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that children in Zimbabwe are facing. I'll start with child labor. Just because most of the people lost their jobs, and especially those who were in the informal sector. This has led to so many people losing their jobs, and it's impacting most of